Elder Scrolls Online has roughly 4,000 achievements totaling exactly 74,720 points. My goal is to obtain every single one of them. It could take me years, and I don't know if I have the skill, patience, or even the energy to see it through. And I didn't realise that this is actually about something far more than just achievements. It started with someone I met in a dungeon over a year ago, and a conversation I've never quite managed to leave behind. Now, as if obtaining every achievement isn't enough, I'll also be collecting every armour set, every weapon, every crafting motif and outfit style that the game has to offer. To do all that, I'll have to complete the hardest content in the game, I'll have to earn achievements that only a tiny fraction of players ever will, and I'll have to build everything from scratch on a brand new account. Every success, every mistake, every group wipe, and every embarrassing failure will be streamed live for anyone to watch. And all that, the achievements, the sets, motifs, that's the easy part. Liar! The hard part has been figuring out why I even want to take on this challenge in the first place. On paper, this started as ticking boxes on a spreadsheet, but somewhere along the way, it became a story about something much, much bigger. The general consensus around 100%ing ESO is, oh, it's definitely possible, and a few players have already done it, but it's not a realistic goal for most people. Well, I know I'm definitely not most people. And I don't mean that in the good way. I mean it in the, I'm a weirdo and I've never fit in at any group setting anywhere whatsoever in my entire life. But technically, yeah, I'm not most people, so I just might actually be uniquely qualified to see this one through. Now, I might be a little bit insane for taking this challenge on, but I'm not stupid. Not completely stupid anyway. I've played ESO for roughly 1,000 hours on and off since way back in 2021. I've loved, well, most things about it. It was my first MMO, and to say I was overwhelmed would be an understatement. I began questing through Vardenfell in the Morrowind chapter. I had no idea how any of the systems worked. I queued for a random normal dungeon, my team sprinted off without me before I even knew what was going on, so I figured this just wasn't the game for me and I quit shortly after. A year later though, I played again and things started to make a bit more sense. I made it all the way to Cold Harbour and Craglorn, figuring out most of the different systems and skill lines. It took me another year before I got brave enough to join a guild and start running dungeons regularly. I could keep up now, well, barely. Then after another year-long break I started running trials. And trials involve complex coordination between team members, and that's when the true depth and complexity of the end game hit me. The more I learned, the more I was hooked, and I had some good times for a change.
He said it!
I ended up clearing all 32 of the veteran DLC dungeons that were available at the time, and I had hard mode clears for around half of them. Again, on veteran difficulty, I also cleared 12 out of the 13 trials. During those trials, my team diligently followed the instructions of our raid leader, but we still had many deaths and many group wipes over the course of several months. We were incredibly far away from anything approaching a speedrun clear. We were exceedingly far away from anything approaching a no death clear. And we were exceptionally far away from a hard mode clear. So we stood absolutely no chance of ever combining all three of those together for the trifecta. I'm not a brand new player. I'm not a casual player. But I don't have what it takes to completely steamroll this challenge. So let's take stock. At the time of writing this, how many achievement points do I actually have so far? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What's that number? It's so small I can hardly see it. Heard that one a few times before. Enhance. Enhance again. 85. You can't even see the progress bar. 85 points out of 74,720. And I have no gear at all that would make my character anywhere near capable of completing this challenge. But what do I have? Well, here's my first character.
Ah, super kawaii.
This is Bronwyn Gallowgale. Say hello, Bronwyn.
I know you. You know you. And I know you know that I know you.
Bronwyn is a Nord Dragon Knight. I understand the class's playstyle and mechanics, plus it's a class that should be equally strong in all the areas of the game that I intend to master. Looking at the journey ahead with Bronwyn, I can see two major bottlenecks. Bottleneck number 1, obtaining all the trial trifectas. This one requires completing all veteran difficulty trials obtaining the 3 achievements of speedrun, no death and hard mode all in the same run. This one isn't so much of a bottleneck as it is more of a roadblock, or like a big massive immovable object placed right down in my way. And bottleneck number 2 is becoming Emperor of Cyrodiil. That will require me to practice my PvP skills for months. I'll have to join a high level PvP guild, play with them for months, help them out with their objectives in the game, and maybe one day I'll have earned enough of their trust and goodwill to ask them to help me with mine. Both of those bottlenecks are terrifying, and I'm honestly not sure if I can do it. They'll basically require me to master both the PvE and PvP aspects of the game. You might be thinking here, hang on Bronze and Brave, isn't PvE and PvP kind of pretty much everything in this game? Bronze and Brave, are you really saying that your bottleneck on this journey to complete everything in this game is going to be kind of like everything in this game? And to that, I would answer, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The bottleneck on this journey to complete everything in this game is going to be just the entire game itself. Now look, I'll be completely 100% partially honest with you. That's the most terrifying thing about this, but also in another way, it's weightlessly liberating. Yes, I'll need to master every system the game has to offer. Yes, I'll need to cooperate with every player the game aligns me with, and yes, I'll need to fight against every skilled opponent who has a decade more experience than me. But at the same time, that's just what the game is. In order to complete this challenge, I'll just have to play the game. A lot. Now, I do like this game, and there's a lot worse ways I could be spending my time. Heck, if I'd have been born a century earlier, I would have already fought in a world war by now, and likely would be getting called up for another one in around 10 years. Compared to that, playing Elder Scrolls Online a lot doesn't sound so bad in comparison. Oh, but there is one super secret third bottleneck that I have not mentioned yet, and this really is the one that terrifies me the most. Other people. As a classic introvert, the thought of joining several guilds and staying in them for possibly years, talking in guild chat, talking in dungeon chat, talking in trial chat, Discord, all that makes me want to switch off my PC, listen to the Smiths, and cry myself to sleep. Now, don't get me wrong, I've gotten better at socialising over the years, but even in ESO, I find myself spending several minutes in guild chat drafting a 2-sentence reply, only to either delete it or hit send just as the conversation has moved on. Oh, and here's another thing, I've never used voice chat. Not once. To recap then, that's 2 major bottlenecks. That should be 3, sorry. 3, yeah. 3 major bottlenecks. PvE, PvP, social awkwardness, and a complete inability to count to 3. Okay, so do I have anything at all working for me in my favour? Well, eventually I'll have a Dragon Knight tank, and tanks are always in demand, so that'll make finding dungeon groups easier, which means I'll get more time practicing and building my gear sets. I'll also eventually have an Arcanist damage dealer for clearing trials. The last time I played that class, I was good enough to get into some learning groups, but still nowhere near good enough to get into the elite teams I'll eventually need to be a part of. Now, you might wonder why I'm not using my tank for the trial trifectas. Well, the last time I played, most groups already had experienced tanks that they already trusted, but also I was just too scared to volunteer for training. I'd be asking a group of 11 other people to put aside a whole evening just to wipe over and over and over on a boss while I'm learning from my mistakes. When a tank makes a mistake, everyone in that trial knows exactly who made it, and that's enough to bring back the social anxiety, the rejection, the ridicule, the isolation, the Smiths. You get where I'm going with this. Oh, and my current guildmaster has already hinted that she wants me training as a tank in their new learning group. But how the hell do you even go about explaining all this kind of stuff to a normal person? Now, as for PvP, it's a side of the game I know almost nothing about. I have around 50 hours or so playing PvP, and that's enough time to understand just how little I actually know about it. And then there's finding a PvP guild, which brings back the social anxiety, the rejection, the ridicule, the isolation, the Smiths. These two characters though will be enough to put me on the path of clearing the two biggest bottlenecks in the journey. But I'm under no illusions that there's an enormous number of months and likely years of practice that lie ahead. The plus side of building these characters is that their progression will naturally unlock hundreds of achievements along the way. Oh god, I've just remembered I have to get Master Angler. And that realisation brings me to the other part of ESO that doesn't exactly excite me. Tales of Tribute, ESO's deck building card game. I've never played it, nor do I have any interest in playing it. I'll wager that the most difficult thing here will be committing to the grind without falling asleep. No offence to all the Tales of Tribute fans out there. On a serious note though, I will have to dedicate time to learning this in order to win enough ranked games to reach Rubedite rank for full completion. So, after all that, the achievements, the trifectas, the PvP, the years of grinding, now's a good time for you to be asking, okay Bronze and Brave, I get it. You like ESO and you're insane, but why? Why would anyone willingly do this to themselves? Well, I can tell you that this isn't about an achievement. It isn't about a title. It isn't even really about Elder Scrolls Online. It all starts with someone I'd never met before. It all starts with Yondralf. Something about tanking drew me in right from the beginning. Maybe it's because my first guild only had one tank, so every day I used to see messages in chat begging for one to help out. I quickly realised that if I learned how to tank, I could help out in the guild. I could be someone important. I could do something worthwhile. I could be a celebrity in my own tiny corner of the world. Now, delusions of grandeur and introversion, they don't exactly go hand in hand. One side telling me to take a chance and the other quietly begging me to stay home. And for me, that tension generally ends in one of two ways. An experience I'd cherish for years, or soul crippling anguish. Sometimes both. But I made my tank, I quested, I leveled, I geared, I pulled mobs, and I practiced. Pull and practice. Pull and practice. And that became my mantra. And soon our guild had 2 tanks, and I wanted to be the best one. I used to queue as a healer with the other tank in my guild, and we would run dungeons together in the early hours of the morning. Sometimes he would pull slowly and show me his decision making. Sometimes he would just run through the whole entire dungeon as a joke, pulling everything to the last boss where he had the skill to hold aggro on them all and astonishingly stay alive. There was one fight in particular where he was the only one left standing on the final boss. He took several minutes soloing it with his minuscule chip damage. The other group members were raging at him in chat to either res them or wipe, but he just ignored them and he finished the boss off himself and even took the time to annoy them even more. I spectated everything from the death screen in awe of his abilities and confidence. After months of learning and practice, I'm proud to say I became one of the best tanks in the guild. I actually became the second best, which sounds much more impressive until I remind you that there were only 2 of us. Anyway, I used to think that the best players were like him. Invincible, flamboyant, larger than life, mythical and full of swagger. But when I met Jondralf, well, he wasn't like that at all. In fact, I don't even remember anything about him, except that he made me realise I'd been looking at the game wrong this whole time. It was a Tuesday morning. I woke up early, made myself a strong cup of hot steaming coffee, and sat down to watch a guide. That day's veteran DLC dungeon was Moonhunter Keep. The pools looked relatively straightforward: taunt the big threats, slam down elemental blockade, throw out some caltrops, root everything with talons, turn them away from the group, and chain in any loose adds so they can be killed by the group's AoEs. Nothing I hadn't done countless times in other dungeons. Pool and practice. Previously, I had made it all the way up to the final boss Vycosa, but I kept missing the block on her heavy attack, dying instantly, causing many group wipes, and generally pissing everyone off for wasting their time. Now, after all my training, surely I'd be able to see Vycosa's heavy attack coming, and I'd finally be able to beat her. I mean, yeah, it looked difficult, but I thought I could do it, just so long as no one in the group activated hard mode. I wouldn't last a second on hard mode. I already have everything I need, I told myself. My skills are enough. I belong here. Maybe I might forget a particular mechanic and cause a group wipe. Good. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. Maybe I was going to pull too slowly and frustrate my group. I can't control how others feel. I can only choose how I react to it. I felt like I had an answer to everything that day. See, the luck I've had can turn a good man bad. But that day, my luck changed. That day, everything changed. The group that formed for Moonhunter Keep contained someone I'd never met before. Just another name on the party list. Jondralf. Of course, at that time, I had no idea who he was. I had bigger things to worry about. The group's skill level was far higher than my own, and I immediately fell into the trap of playing at their pace and not sticking to mine. Palms sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom spaghetti. My stress levels slowly started ramping up. Every time I turned round to check the group, they were right behind me, surging forward with the raging torrent of a river. But my practice came together that day. Every pull became automatic. Run in, scan for the biggest threat, taunt, blockade, caltrops, talons, chains, pull, and practice. Pull and practice. From the outside, the accumulated hours of training coalesced in my actions. On the inside, though, I felt like an imposter. I knew I was doing all the right things, but I didn't think I deserved the incredible results I was getting. The doubt sprang up in my mind. You're only progressing this far because you have a good group. Oh boy, I can't wait until they see you get hit by those heavy attacks. It's only a matter of time before you screw this one up, Bronze and Brave. Nonetheless, one step at a time, brick by bone-curdling brick, everything lay broken before us until only Vycosa remained. A candle in the dark lit from within me. Part of me was actually starting to think that we might pull this off. We'd gotten through the dungeon this far quickly and efficiently with no deaths. Maybe I really did have everything I needed. Maybe my skills were enough. Maybe I really did belong here. All thanks to pool and practice. What seemed impossible slowly became possible. I started to think I was good enough. Then they activated hard mode. The dread ran through me like a tidal wave. It numbed every thought in my head, drowned every affirmation I was grasping for. Soon, the scroll of glorious battle would expose me as the fraud I was. And you deserve this, came the familiar voice dragging me down under the waves. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that I'd failed, and it certainly wouldn't be the last, but maybe this time, just maybe, I could do it. Now you can watch as many guides as you like, but nothing prepares you for the relentless onslaught of tanking a hard mode DLC boss. The constant pressure, the knife edge resource management, every heavy attack threatens to wipe the whole group with just a single mistake. I let out a bone chilling war cry as I charged in, pulling Vycosa and Zell to the back of the arena and turning them away from the group. Her heavy attacks, which had once looked obscured in the fog of war, now felt slow and obvious. My heightened senses spotted each one coming a mile away, and I blocked every single hit. I had solved one problem, but it introduced another. You see, I'd never survived this long before, and every block was draining my stamina hit by hit. Do your job, tank. Stay alive. The werewolf ads spawned in, and as I pulled them away from my group, a tiny spark of hope returned. We might actually do this. My DPS were tearing through Vycosa's health bar. My healer was on point. Their tank though, well, he was barely holding it together. My stamina kept draining under the weight of every block, every new ad and every mistake. I forced myself to weave heavy attacks between abilities just to claw some of it back. Heavy attack, taunt, heavy attack, damage shield, heavy attack, block, rotation, mechanics, training. The rhythm of combat merged with the harmony of shouts, screams and claws bashing against my shield. My eyes bounced constantly between Vycosa's health bar and my own resources. Health, stamina, magicka, red, green, blue. Then the archivist appeared. He flicked through his sigil, searching for the colour that would decide whether we lived or died. Red, green, blue. Red, green, blue. Red. My team scattered to their sigils, leaving one for me close by so that I didn't have to sprint too far. We were safe. For now. Then the execute phase began. Immediately, my eyes looked back onto my resources. Red, green, blue. My stamina was disappearing. Panic hit. I'd forgotten to weave my heavy attacks. My eyes darted between Vycosa's shrinking health bar and my own shrinking stamina. Red, green, blue. Red, green, blue. If I could just survive a few more seconds, we'd win. Red, green, blue. A few more seconds. Red, gone, blue. Gone. With no stamina, I had nothing left to block her next heavy attack. The attack that had killed me from obscurity so many times before now hung in the air with the full weight of my attention bearing on it. The one that would finally kill me would be the one I'd see coming. How ironic. It landed. I died. In an instant, every dream I'd had of tanking for high-level groups collapsed with my corpse. The screen faded into the familiar death hues. I watched Vycosa break loose. I watched my teammates scattered. I waited for them to die. I waited for bad tank to appear in the chat. I waited to be kicked. I waited for the pain. Instead, colour rushed back into the world. I was alive. Activity complete. Vycosa lay dead at my feet. My team had finished the fight. I'd stayed alive just long enough for them to get the kill. My hands were still shaking, my heart was still pounding, my whole body felt like I'd ran a marathon, but I'd done it. Hard mode, speedrun, and we'd missed the trifecta by mere seconds, just because I died at the very end. Slumped forward onto my desk, head in hands, my team exchanged the usual GG messages and they disappeared from my life, back into their world, and I assumed that was the end of it. They'd finished this dungeon maybe 100 times before, with 100 different groups, and I was just one of 100 different tanks that helped them get their daily done. For me, I'd finished one of the most emotionally draining moments I'd had in the game so far. For them, it was Tuesday. But that's when a whisper appeared in my chat box. You are the best evidence that a well tank doesn't have to be greater than 1,000 champion points, big smiley face. I sat staring at that message for a long time because it suddenly hit me. The player I'd admired most wasn't the one soloing bosses, wasn't the one being flamboyant, wasn't the one with the most swagger. It was the one who'd taken a few seconds to make someone else's day better. He had no idea that this message would mean so much to me. He had no idea that I'd screenshot it and still be thinking about it over a year later. It was the part of the game I'd been missing. I'd been so caught up in my own struggles that it had never once occurred to me that there might be other people having struggles of their own. It never occurred to me that maybe their hands were sweaty, their knees were weak, their arms were heavy, vomit on their sweater already, mom's spaghetti. That's what I'd been missing in this game. How had I been playing an MMO for 4 years and never thought about what all those other players were going through? What kind of a day they'd had? What kind of stress were they under at work? What was going on at home? I realised that the way I'd been playing tank, protecting all those funny little characters on my screen, that's the way I should have been treating the people behind those characters. I should have been there for them, supporting them, telling them, good work. Pool, practice, and praise. Maybe I'd never be the best tank in my guild. Maybe I'd never be that celebrity in my own little corner of the world. But I could be the player who made someone else's day a little better. I could be just like Yondralf. The funny thing is though, Yondralf probably has no idea any of this happened. He sent one message and then carried on with his day. He'll probably never know that years later, I'm still thinking about it. But that's the thing about kindness. Sometimes you never get to see exactly how far it travels. Okay, Bronze Brave, I get it. You like ESO, you're insane, and you got a compliment once. But why did you think any of this deserved a 50-minute documentary?
Ma'am, I answered your question.
What do you mean, Bronze and Brave?
I answered the darn... I'm cooperating here. And there...
Please don't be argumentative.
I'm not arguing here. I'm cooperating. And there's no... We're doing all we can.
Listen, you have one video, 11 subscribers, and a bunch of cringe Overwatch shorts. Your profile picture is one step away from an anime avatar. Your video chapters are lines from The Smiths. And well, look, I've read the script, dude. In 3 paragraphs, you're about to start telling us how you're writing this at 3 AM in the dark listening to My Chemical Romance. It is really not looking good for your credibility, mate. If you don't tell me right now why you're doing all this, I'm closing your video and you'll never see me again. Why am I doing this? Because I want to make something that matters. Well, let me start by asking you, have you ever had that thing you're looking for arrive right when you least expect it? I'm tired of people pretending. I'm tired of the performative nature of everything online. I'm tired of art becoming content. I'm tired of people trying to optimize life instead of understanding it. I'm tired of people engaging with algorithms more than they engage with themselves. I'm a lurker. I don't post. I don't comment. I don't interact. I'm not perky. I'm cynical. I'm jaded. I'm distrustful. I'm pessimistic. I'm suspicious. I'm alone. But most of all, I'm craving authenticity. Please, please, please let me get what I want this time. I'm craving authenticity because the bread and the circuses, they're not working for me anymore, and they have not been working for a long time. The idea for this challenge came to me while drifting off to sleep one afternoon. It started slowly forming in my head. At first, just a miniature pin-sized idea, but like a black hole, it slowly, carefully started drawing in all the other thoughts around it. One thought leading to another, leading to the next. Each one connecting like a line of DNA that would become a blueprint I would later bring to life. That miniature black hole started expanding, started filling up my mind, but I noticed right at the centre of it was something else. It wasn't a grandiose plan, it wasn't a chase for clout, and it certainly wasn't filled with swagger. It was just a simple excitement to play Elder Scrolls Online again, an excitement to get back in Tamriel, to build a character and take on some challenges that would leave me questioning who I was. No other game has made me feel like that. That excitement, it forced me out of bed, made me clear up space on my hard drive, download ESO, and immediately start working on the script while I waited. The more I wrote, the more the excitement to play ESO became excitement to write this script. One word led to another, one word led to the next, and soon this script too started coming to life. I knew I had a story to tell, I just wasn't exactly sure what the story was. And after a week of writing this in my spare time, I'll admit, I still don't know what that story's going to be. But whenever I'm writing, I know two things for certain. I'm creating something from nothing, and I love doing it. Here's the thing though, I can't think of a good reason why you should give up your time to care about my story. I can't think of a good reason why you should listen to some delusional new YouTuber that could turn his channel into AI slop next week. But what I do know is that every story needs someone to tell it. And every story also needs someone who's willing to listen. If you've made it this far, then something in my story has kept you here. Maybe you're here because you like numbers, checklists and percentages. Maybe you're here because you have your own impossible goal that no one seems to understand. Or maybe you're here just to see if I'm actually crazy enough to pull this off. There's a lot we don't know about each other, but what I do know is that you're someone who's willing to take a chance every now and again. It's 3 AM, I'm sitting in the dark listening to My Chemical Romance, wondering what this video looked like to you before you clicked it. The clunky 20 character title, the amateur thumbnail. A view count so low that you probably noticed that before anything else. Yet, you clicked it anyway. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was an open mind. Or maybe it was a willingness to invest time into a stranger before they've had the chance to prove themselves. Whatever it was, thank you. You remind me of someone I know. You remind me of Yon Ralph. I mention all this because I don't think you're wrong to gatekeep your attention. In fact, I think the opposite. Your phone, your tablet, your first, second, third monitor, they're all prime real estate. You get to decide what goes on them, not the algorithm, not the advertisers, and certainly not the shareholders. You're correct to question the motives of someone trying to grab your attention, trying desperately to get your eyes on their product and ideas. Garbage in is garbage out. And in a world where it's never been easier to create content and get it in front of hungry eyes, you're right to be careful of what you consume. In this attention economy, you are the prize, and you have the control. There are real gems out there in the world, and I hope you find them. You deserve to spend your precious time around works of art that make you feel glad to be alive, around things that remind you life is actually worth living. Will my story be among those works of art? That's not for me to say. As much as I'd like to hope so, I'm afraid I can't make any promises. Maybe those same voices will return. Maybe I'll fail at the first hurdle. Or maybe, just maybe, I'll be the best evidence that a well tank don't have to be greater than 1000 champion points, big smiley face. I know I've set myself a lofty goal here, but after everything I've shown you, I think it looks just about achievable. Not today, not tomorrow, but maybe after many, many months of hard work and practice, I can do it. On paper, this started as ticking boxes on a spreadsheet, but somewhere along the way, it became a story about something much, much bigger. The grinding, the gear, the achievements, those things, they're just steps along the way. They're not the real reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because someone took a few minutes out of their day to encourage me. I'm doing this because you never know how far a small amount of kindness can travel. And I'm doing this because on a very bad day, the thought of creating something memorable was enough to get me out of bed. And that's something that hadn't happened to me for a long time. Maybe I'll 100% Elder Scrolls Online. Maybe I won't. But if this challenge makes me a better writer, if it gives me the chance to help someone who needs it, if it tells a story worth remembering, then maybe I'll get exactly what I wanted. And maybe one day I'll see you in Moonhunter's Keep.